Hello and welcome back to the Master Division of the International Championship. In the first game of the season, I finished at the third place. It was a very close game. I was only 2 points behind Eepogi, who finished at the second position. But with at the end being third, of course, not an ideal start into the new season, but it's also only one game that has finished for me, so everything is still possible. And today we are going to take a look at the second game, which will be a three-player game, again against Eepogi and against Allfather. So now without further ado, let's take a look at the game. In this game, I am playing again in the last position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And there's quite some theater synergy in H3. We have Chaplin, Marlene Dietrich, Fleming, and the Hollywoods, so there's some potential for a big Hollywood. We have not the most lab synergy, only Sid Meier is there. There's no space flight, so not a lot of synergy for that. Also no Nobel in H2. We have Churchill and Gandhi for the military as well as the Manhattan Project. The Red Cross is there as well. We have the Ocean Liner Service together with Maria Theresa as a strong combination. We also have James Watt and the Railroad. We have Newton but no Nobel. We have two military action leaders and Anthony Gaudi as a culture leader, maybe as a setup for those theater leaders in H3. In H1 we have both of the military action leaders with John of Argony and Shishka. Genghis Khan can help with the strength. We have Columbus, but there's no Suez Canal in there. And then we have Gutenberg, but no Leonardo. We have Universitas, but no Silk Road. Both the Strength Wonders, Himeji Castle and Great Wall are there, but both of the Happy Face Solution Wonders, Forbidden City and St. Peter's Basilica are missing. Eepogi is in first position and he decides to just start with the Engineering Genius here. It's of course a strong card and probably none of those cards that he could have taken instead is necessarily worth it to pass up on it, so that looks fine. Now I was interested to see whether Allfather will just go for Hammurabi, and indeed he will. And for my turn, I could now do some different things. I could just grab Boudica, which maybe could be fine. I would take her away from Eepogi, and maybe that could be fine. But I also have the option to take a leader and a wonder. There's Sun Tzu, and Sun Tzu, of course, synergizes quite nicely with the Colossus. However, when we take a look at the leaders and wonders again, there's no Suez Canal, there is James Cook, there's Columbus, there is Jan Shishka, Genghis Khan. So there's some synergy for Sun Tzu, but sadly no Suez Canal. Nonetheless, also maybe to just get a little bit more familiar with different kinds of playstyles, I made a decision here to go indeed for Sun Tzu and the Colossus. I thought also about the other wonders. Maybe the Colosseum could be fine as well. I could have even just taken a yellow card, but the only wonder that isn't out is the Stonehenge, so I rather wanted to commit to one now. And I'm playing in third position, not the ideal positioning to go for an aggressive game, but it can still work nonetheless. And the good thing is Boudica will stay on 2 civil actions for Eepogi, so even though I let her be available for him, he at least has to maybe pay an additional civil action for her. And with that, that's the end of my turn. With taking Colossus, I also take a wonder that is in the discard spot, meaning not that many new cards will be revealed, decreasing the chance that the Stonehenge will be revealed. And if it is not revealed, and if Eepogi decides to go for the Colosseum, then Allfather is in danger, or then he would miss out on an HA wonder, which could potentially be annoying for him. So that was my pick at the end. Now it's Eepogi's turn. There's indeed no Stonehenge, and indeed Eepogi goes for the Colosseum here. Doesn't go for Boudica yet, instead uses all of his civil actions effectively with being able to use the Engineering Genius on the first step of the Colosseum. Boudica will be discarded before his next turn, but he might be able to go for one of those HA leaders. Now it's Allfather's turn. He goes for Hammurabi, and with no wonder available, he has to use his additional civil action somewhat ineffectively, which with just grabbing Stockpile and the Frugality. Now it is my turn, and this turn I got a little bit tested by the card row if I'm really willing to go for a bit of a different playstyle here, because the first card revealed from H1 is Saladin, and he's calling to me, take me, get the 5th civil action going, which is something that I would really like to have that early in the game. But of course, Sansu has quite some potential with the Colossus. There are some interestingly synergizing leaders like Jan Shishka, Genghis Khan, and Columbus, who at the end might be more valuable for me than getting the Saladin. However, if I don't take Saladin, then Eepogi might be able to get him as his first leader, which I think would be quite strong for him. So I was very much tested here to just, after electing Sansu, to take Saladin, elect him as well, and then build a third mine, get the fifth civil action going, and I think that might be a very solid choice. But here I decided to stick more with the plan of going for something with Sansu, and so I just built a mine, increased my population, and took the frugality. Having to spend a civil action on such a not that effective card, of course, was even maybe another reason to just go for Saladin. Maybe I should just go for Saladin. I do think the early additional civil action is just really, really strong, and I would take him away from Eepogi, who then maybe would have to go for Cleo or Ashoka or maybe Caesar if he also wants to hop into the aggressive game. So maybe I should actually go for Saladin here. Maybe I was now too much. Maybe I just wanted too much to just go for something different. But on the other hand, Sansu Colossus also has quite some potential, and I decided to rather focus on that here. And I draw a defense card as well as 2 events, and also my first tactic already. Eepogi, as expected, will go for Saladin. I was not too happy to see it, but yeah, that's what it is. Also, another thing that I didn't like that much is that there was a very early Universitas available for Allfather, who has missed out on his HA wonder, so sadly he will be able to go for the Universitas. He is also going for the Theocracy, maybe being a bit afraid of my Sansu plus Colossus combination, and especially with Hammurabi he can maybe do a Revolution, and then he would be quite a bit safer. He builds a lab, increases his population, and is now nicely prepared to go for a Revolution at the next turn. The good news for me are that there's actually a copy of Knights coming down the row, and I have already drawn the Knights tactic. With that I started seeding now the Barbarians, opening the development of trade routes. I took the Knights here, and then I thought about building the second lab, and then the question is what to do with the last civil action. I could just increase my population, but I could also take this copy of Alchemy, which is available for 1 civil action, in which I maybe could end up going for at some point, either after or before finishing the Colossus, and it could just be nice to have it. However, if I take the Alchemy, then of course there's the idea of, instead of building the lab, increasing my population so that I can build an Alchemy directly at the next turn. And I considered it, but at the end I went with building the lab and still taking the Alchemy. Of course, now I don't have the chance to save a civil action with building the Alchemy directly, but I get an additional science this turn, and with not going into consumption I also get an additional food this turn. Of course I have no free population, I might get punished for that, but the additional thing is that not building the second lab now is a bit of a commitment. I'm going for less economical value, and the plan is to regain it with building an Alchemy directly, but that would also mean that I kind of have to build an Alchemy directly at the next turn, otherwise I just have lost some value. While now, with just going for the lab, I can also start maybe building some knights, go for an early military pressure or something, and I'm not that much committed into going for the Alchemy soon, so at the end I just wanted to stay out of consumption, get the science production going, but I still wanted to have the option to go for the Alchemy. I keep the tactic and the colonization card, and I draw 1 more event, the new deposits, also some more tactics. Eepogi finishes the Colosseum, takes the Michi Castle and the reserves. Allfather does the revolution to theocracy, builds a step of the Universitas, so is now a bit safer from potential aggressive play. Now it is my turn, and as you can see I actually did this decision here to not see it. I won't take this copy of Iron this turn, and if it might just be that the new deposits will help one of my opponents quite a bit more. Additionally, I didn't have a free population during my politics phase, while I now will increase my population, so now I'm prepared to take the free warrior or free religion, and both of those things would be quite nice to have. So here I was not willing to put an event into the deck that could be bad for me. Even though, of course, generally I would like to see the deck moving forward quickly, but here I skip the politics phase, and then I start my turn by increasing my population with the frugality. I could just start building in the Colossus, in which case I probably would need to increase my population without the frugality, or just increase my population 2 times, but there's a bit of time until the event deck will be flipping, and so I thought it's now time to get a bit of economical value going before I then can soon finish the Colossus. I will also take the breakthrough with my last civil action, and with that we'll have a very nice amount of science to work with. I also thought about taking the irrigation, which can be nice to have in a bit of a military push, especially with the upgraded tactic of Sansu, potentially being able to fulfill the tactic an additional time thanks to some additional population can be quite strong, but at the end I just wanted to take the breakthrough for one civil action. So I could have gone for the Colossus for a bit more of aggressive play. I have one aggression in hand, but I don't know if I get Jan Žižka. Allfather did already some investment into a defense. Eepogi has Colosseum, has taken Imeji Castle. I felt like now they have already done some responses to my setup, and instead of now trying to force something aggressive through, I rather want to get some economy going for myself, and I can still finish the Colossus and hopefully relatively soon go for a Phalanx tactic. I keep the Phalanx tactic and the colonization card. I draw 2 colonies and another colonization card. Eepogi takes the iron for 2. I made sure to let it stay on 2 civil actions for him. He will go for an upgrade, increases his population, and with going for that turn he also makes it that I at my next turn still have the chance to grab Columbus if I want to. Now it's Allfather's turn. He seeds and opens the development of agriculture. Sadly for him, no additional resources, meaning he can't finish the Universitas yet, but he takes the Engineering Genius so that he can finish the Universitas at the next turn very effectively, increases his population a bunch of times, and also takes the Urban Growth. Could have also built a step, but maybe the Urban Growth will also be put to good use. Now it is my turn, and I decided to seed the Historic Territory into the deck here, because I will actually go for Columbus this turn. With the Colossus, there's always the chance to hit the jackpot, get a really strong H2 colony, and I have even the Inhabited Territory, which is already a strong colony for Columbus. I could of course wait for Jan Žižka, but I don't know whether I will get him. Allfather is playing in front of me, could take him away from me, and the leaders that are left, Joan of Arc will be gone if I don't take her now for 2 civil actions, and then if I don't get Žižka, there could be Genghis Khan, but I have no heavy cavalry. Isabella, Gutenberg could all be a bit tricky, so I thought Columbus is just very strong, has some huge potential with the Colossus, and so I wanted to pick him. With picking him, I kept the Inhabited Territory in hand, but I still wanted to move the deck forward, and I have the Colossus for an additional colonization force, and with that I was willing to cede the Historic Territory here, even though it will be hard for me to keep a lot of defense cards in hand. The development of Civil Life is revealed, which I will use to increase my population, or actually not, I will use it to develop the Knights, which I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. This turn I will increase my population. I increase my population again to get out of corruption. I take Columbus, and I actually also take the Urban Growth. I could have of course gone for another alchemy upgrade, but that is a bit of an investment. I still need a Colossus. I want to get an army running soon, because the event deck is now not that far from a flipping. So I think going for an alchemy upgrade would be too greedy. I could of course build a step of the Colossus instead of grabbing the Urban Growth, having more civil actions at the next turn, but now with the Urban Growth I have at least the option to maybe just finish the Colossus at the next turn, use the Urban Growth to go for the second upgrade, really get some good science production running, and then hopefully soon afterwards still being able to go for that Phalanx tactic. And so I was willing to grab the Urban Growth here for 1 civil action, because I will hopefully very soon be able to use it, and I increased my population 2 times to get out of corruption. I reveal the tactic so that I can keep the colony for Columbus as well as at least 1 defense card. I draw some cards, 2 more events that I can potentially push. Eepogi goes for 1 more iron upgrade, increases his population, takes the cultural heritage, plays the reserves, and goes for another upgrade. Allfather seeds and opens the development of crafts. He will this turn finish the Universitas, takes Joan of Arc, takes the Knights, and with that has quite some strength potential. Joan of Arc is giving him 2 additional strength. He has the Knights to copy the Phalanx tactic as soon as that will be available, and has some happy faces, so he is looking like he has a good setup here to be prepared to maybe even take the strength lead and be aggressive himself. Now it's my turn, and I just wanted to continue pushing. I could have also not pushed, because the events are not too great, but the Knowledge of the Ancients is at least nice against Allfather, who has only an H1 wonder. But Eepogi has of course already 2 wonders, so it might be best for him at the end. Nonetheless, I thought having a bit more information about the event deck is nice, and so I seeded. And the development of Warfare is revealed, which will allow me to take a free warrior here. Thanks to the development of Warfare and the additional resources that were revealed with, I think, the development of Crafts, I now have even the option to finish the Colossus and build a Knight to go up to 10 strength, which would be quite strong. And I really considered it. Eepogi would maybe be forced to react to that. However, he is getting a warrior for free. He can maybe just go for swordsman, build some swordsman, but I mean, at least he would be forced to react to that. And here I instead made a decision to take the Warfare first of all, and then go for another upgrade with the Urban Growth, deciding to keep Sansu for another turn, as it will be very likely still H1 during my next turn. And then, if I want to keep Columbus in hand, if I then don't use the Urban Growth, it's a bit annoying because I have some hand space issues. Of course, I could just elect Columbus, but I also can now get some more draws, maybe a fitting event that I can put into the deck at the next turn, and also the chance to maybe get something like Medieval Army to get an even better tactic for upgrading or something. And so at the end, I was decided against building the Knight, which sadly gives Eepogi a bit of breathing room. Maybe that is a mistake. Maybe I should have built a Knight, but then as said, the turn gets a bit awkward. Maybe it's fine to just select Columbus here, and then I could take maybe Warfare and Iron, because the Iron I will actually pass on here, and with Eepogi already having a copy of Iron, that will be discarded during his turns, meaning we have 2 players without an Iron. Allfather is playing in front of me, at least doesn't have the most civil actions, but might be able to get the Code of Laws at his next turn. Hopefully Eepogi will take that away from him. And yeah, so that is a bit risky. Maybe I should have played it differently here, but at least I get the science production running. And yeah, and I have the Warfare that I in this position valued more highly than the Iron, because with the Colossus keeping the cards that you draw in hand is quite strong. I get an additional strength. And yeah, I just am prepared also for Republic very nicely. So I wanted to rather have the Warfare than getting into a relatively late Iron. I first have to go for some Knights anyway, and yeah, and then it would be quite slow getting into that. So I at the end decided to go for the Warfare here. I keep the colony in the colonization card, and I draw a bunch of events. And I draw an open borders agreement that of course could be interesting, as well as the immigration. I was happy to see that Eepogi takes that copy of Code of Laws away. However, Allfather has another chance to get one. At least he has to pay an additional civil action if he wants to get the second copy. And then Eepogi reveals the Medieval Army tactic. He stays on 2 strength. That would have been very risky for him if I would have gone up to 10 strength. The problem is, if I would have decided to keep an aggression, then with also keeping inhabited for Columbus, I would have needed to discard the colonization cards, which also could still be nice to have for the historic territory, so it would have just been a bit awkward. Allfather sees, he sees what is on top, and it's the knowledge of the ancients. He will go for the Knights this turn, builds one, plays the stockpile before he loses it to the end of the age, which will also allow him to get another population out before the end of the age. The only good news for me, or the bad thing for him, is that he doesn't have the civil action to go for Code of Laws if he wants to do both building a Knight, getting strongest, and also getting the population with using the stockpile. So he will be stuck on a relatively low amount of civil actions for longer, which of course could backfire. Maybe he should have gone for the Code of Laws here, especially because now I will actually be able to go for the Code of Laws, and I have a good amount of science saved up here. I offer the Open Borders Agreement pack to Eepogi. I didn't dare offering it to Allfather, who maybe also would have rejected it, but yeah, he has quite some strength potential, and I rather wanted to have it with Eepogi. I then go for the Code of Laws. I have the Warfare in hand, but now I have already my 3rd military action thanks to the Open Borders Agreement, and being stuck on 4 civil actions can be a bit problematic, so I go for the Code of Laws here, developing it with the Breakthrough. I will build another Knight, going for Columbus now, and then with the remaining civil actions I take a rich land. That is just extremely helpful to get into coal, allows me to even get into coal already at the next turn if I want to. I thought about taking the frugality, because with getting inhabited, it might potentially help me to maybe get another population out. But there's also H2 starting at the next turn. Having a bit of freedom in my civil actions I think is important. And also I don't have knowledge about reds. Both my opponents are very low on food. So with that I didn't want to risk getting just hit by the reds, and then the frugality would be extremely annoying having that in hand. Taking the swordsman also an idea here, but at the end I just wanted to be a bit more flexible at the next turn and increase my population. I keep the colony, the immigration, and now I was very interested to see what will I draw with the Colossus. Will I hit a jackpot for Columbus? First of all, I do actually draw another colony, the strategic one, which maybe could in some situations be an alternative to the inhabited one. And I will draw 1-2 pacts from the Colossus. Not the best draws. The pacts I don't really need. I have already the open borders agreement, a war. We will have to see. Eepogi will have soon the Dimitri Castle, so not really the greatest draws here. Also, what we can see on the row here is a very early ocean liner, and that's a bit annoying for Eepogi because he has some strong iron production, would love to take it, but he has the Dimitri Castle lying around and he's just missing one civil action to finish Dimitri and take the ocean liner. And then it will be taken by either Allfather or me now, very likely. Eepogi seeds, and there are actually the reds revealed, so I was very happy about my decision on increasing my population. Eepogi goes for the swordsman, develops them, gets a bit stronger now, finishes Dimitri, takes the alchemy, and then plays the cultural heritage. Lets the ocean liner stay on the 3 civil action area for Allfather. I was interested to see whether he will take it for all of his civil actions or whether he will let it be available for me. Allfather builds the knights, that gets him out of corruption. He reveals the medieval army tactic, and he indeed just takes the ocean liner. It will be a bit expensive, but he has already some resources saved up, and it's just extremely strong to get it early. Probably didn't want to leave it either to me or even worse to Eepogi, who has even strong production to build it, and so he just grabs it for himself, especially with maybe the cards in the row not being the greatest as an alternative for him. Now it is my turn. I could already use Columbus, but there's still a chance maybe to draw something better, and I don't necessarily need the inhabited territory immediately. So instead I will... do I push? No, I don't push. No, I decided to just pass on my politics action here. I will start the turn by taking a Ridgeland. Just another efficient card will be very helpful for me to get coal or selective breeding going. And then, I can't really do that much on my own civilization. I could go for one of those wonders from H1, but I didn't like that too much. I could just grab even more yellow cards, maybe deny the scientific method from Eepogi or something. But I also didn't like that too much. And at the end I actually made the call, which is a bit of a risk, but I think also with quite some payoff potential. I decided to go for the railroad here, which of course looks a bit weird with being on bronze mines. But there is the hope that I will get coal at some point. I have those ridgelands in hand to maybe go and get into coal more efficiently. And then if I later on can finish that, that will just be a very strong wonder for me. Probably the best I can get out of this Leaders and Wonders mix and out of the remaining wonders from H2. Also, I take it away from Eepogi, who probably wants to go for scientific method, but especially if I would have taken one of those yellow cards, then both of those cards would have been available for one for him, and I think going for one scientific method upgrade and grabbing the railroad could have been a very strong turn for him. So I take the railroad, but I still have one civil action left, but now I can use it to actually build a step. Of course, it's a bit of an investment, but thanks to the ridgelands, I still can go for a coal upgrade at the next turn in case a coal should be available. I keep the colony, one event, and I was hoping of course that maybe again I could have a chance to hit the jackpot. Sadly no colony, but maybe some more useful cards, a colonization card which might help me to win the historic territory, a strong pact which would replace my open borders agreement, but definitely nice to have, and then an event that I can push. Eepogi goes for the scientific method that is in the row for him, can go for one upgrade, at least he's missing a resource to go for 2 upgrades immediately. He will then also upgrade his units a bit more using his free military action and takes the patriotism. Allfather seeds, and the barbarians are revealed at the last turn. I think he didn't see it, he saw the top event with Joan of Arc, he got stronger and with that was able to dodge the barbarians with him having the most culture. He has quite a bit of science saved up, and he decides here to invest that science into the architecture, which he can nicely use in the ocean liner. He also hasn't built any urban buildings that aren't from HA, so he can also potentially save a lot of resources. However, the scientific method, which would maybe be also quite strong for him. I mean, he doesn't need the science production that much, but it would just be extremely cheap with the architecture that likely will be gone. And then with the last civil action, he takes the reserves, which I think makes sense. He needs some additional resources. Now there's Newton coming down the row, who stays on 2 civil actions for me. However, I have Columbus, and I could potentially replace him here and maybe go for Newton, but as you will soon see, there will actually be a copy of coal revealed. And with having the railroad taken, I think it's just too important to go for the coal, and with that I can't go for Newton, which sadly will mean that Eepogi is now able to go for Newton, which I think is a very strong leader for him. Then for my politics phase, even with not going for Newton, it was the question, do I want to use Columbus now for the inhabited territory? Or do I want to do something else? And that something else I thought of was offering the international trade agreement to someone. Just to get the additional resources or food, I choose to go for resources here, to get that as early as possible. The problem being, of course, that I dropped down to 2 military actions, meaning I first of all don't draw that many new cards, so the chance to draw a colony for Columbus are not that high, and I also can't keep that many cards in hand, so I thought about, is it really worth it? Do I not maybe just want to use Columbus? But even though it's a bit awkward, I still can keep the colonization card from H2 plus the inhabited territory. I get the resource from the international trade agreement earlier, and at least I get another shot, even though it's not that likely, to maybe get an even better colony with Columbus. And so here I decided to offer the international trade agreement to Allfather. The pact with Eepogi will be cancelled, and Allfather will get some additional food production, which he, at least for now, maybe doesn't need as much, but as at some point with the ocean liner it might help him to avoid some famine. And as said, the coal is available for me for 3 civil actions. I was very happy to see that. I can now go for coal, I can finish the railroad, and I might get a very big boost in resource production, and also take the first copy of coal away from Allfather. It was more likely that he might have the first chance to take one. But now I can go for one, and of course if I have it in hand, then I also want to develop it. There isn't really anything in the road that I really need to take. The organized religion, of course, could have been nice to take, but I think just getting the production going should be best here. Sadly, I'm missing some resource to finish the railroad already at the next turn, but in 2 turns I might be able to finish it, and also in 2 turns I again have enough science saved up to go for a government form, so maybe in 2 turns I could have the potential to get a really big boost and maybe get a lot of actions and resource production going. As said, I will keep the inhabited territory and the colonization card, and again, of course, I was very interested. Will I draw a strong H2 colony? And I do actually draw a colony here, the strategic territory, which maybe is not at every instance better than the inhabited territory 1, but probably is an upgrade and at least gives me more options, so I was very happy to see that. Eepogi is the weakest, nonetheless is willing to see it, and what he opens here I was very unhappy to see. It's actually the rebellion, which cost me 4 civil actions here, so that is of course quite bad. It was seeded by Allfather, and yeah, losing 4 civil actions is here quite a big setback. At least I can go for one more coal upgrade. At least I have the coal already running. I think if I would have still been waiting for that, it would have been even worse. But yeah, still a very big setback, bit unfortunate, but of course it's also the risk that you take when you just are not concerned about your happy faces at all with not having knowledge about the rebellion. I just didn't have really the breathing room to set up my happy faces, decided to go for something else and got heavily punished here, and especially also with me slightly falling behind in culture, I was a bit worried that that might actually be quite a big setback. Eepogi at least also loses 2 civil actions, and he will go for Newton this turn, develops the cavalryman for 3, builds one, is now at 12 strength, actually disbands a warrior, builds another cavalryman, and reveals the classic army tactic. I was really not happy to see this, because he's now at 20 strength. I don't really have the civil actions and stuff to really respond to the strength push. I can't, for example, develop the warfare, disband something and build another unit. So I'm in big danger of, at Eepogi's next turn, getting hit by an aggression. Now it's Allfather's turn, he will seed, and now my historic territory is revealed. And I do think the bid that I'm going for here is probably a mistake, even though it pays off at the end, making Eepogi pay more, but I think I should not be willing to send my colonization card away here. Of course, the happy face is actually quite useful for me. I would get a bit closer in culture, but if I don't win it, then there is the chance that maybe Eepogi bids for it, and I think I should make it as likely as possible that Eepogi wins that colony, because if he wins it, all the military pressure is taken away, and that could really save me. I mean, if he has an aggression, maybe he's not willing to bid for that anyway, but yeah, I think I should probably not be willing to send his card away with going for that bid of 4. So I'm not sure if I maybe was hoping for Allfather to bid for that. At the end, I'm very lucky that I don't win it, and that actually Eepogi wins it, which made me a lot more comfortable about my next turn. I was very happy to see that military pressure gone. Maybe he didn't have an aggression, maybe he just had one and nonetheless was willing to go for that territory. And yeah, with that, the military pressure is gone. There would have been actually a way to maybe go for a bit of defending, and that would be to actually use Columbus for the strategic territory. If I would do that at the next turn, or if I would have done that, then I would go up to 14. If I then maybe with the one civil action that I have developed a warfare, which is maybe also not ideal, but I could do it, and then I would be at 15 strength with 3 military actions and could defend if Eepogi isn't willing to sacrifice. But now I don't have to be concerned about that, at least for one more turn, and I was very happy to see Eepogi's strength pressure reduced. Allfather this turn will finish the ocean liner. There is the second copy of coal, but he is not willing to grab it for 3. He is not afraid that Eepogi will take it away, which I think is the right call. And he goes for the strategy, which also makes him a bit more dangerous. So while the pressure from Eepogi is gone, Allfather is now a bit pressuring. And with that, I decided to use Columbus this turn, and indeed for the strategic territory, because that just makes it that I can use my 1 civil action to go for 1 more upgrade, get more production going, but I am safe thanks to the 4 additional strength, and this colony draw was actually very useful for me now. And of course I get 5 new draws, and there are some interesting ones among them. Fortifications can always be an option, and the other ones maybe some more events to choose from, but I can't keep that many cards in hand anyway. As said, with my 1 civil action, I will now go for the upgrade. I think that should be best. I think I could have also built a step in that would have got me out of corruption, but I was willing here to maybe go for the resource production first, and at the next turn hopefully I will be able to finish the railroad. If I at the end will be missing 1 civil action because I need to do some other important stuff as well. I still need selective breeding, I still need a government form, I still need a leader, so could have played it more civil actions effectively, but I ideally want to go for that upgrade at some point, so I just decided to go with that first. I keep the colonization card as well as the fortifications, and I draw the inhabited territory too, interestingly. That of course also would have been nice with Columbus. Eepogi goes for another upgrade, is now at 8 science production, rebuilds the swordsman, is back at 20 strength, takes the selective breeding and the rich land. Now it's Allfather's turn. He seeds. Sadly the Reign of Terror hits. I have a free population, but as you might see, if that goes back into my yellow bank, I have an uprising issue and have to delete something, or maybe I will have the shot at getting those team spots if Allfather doesn't take them. So no, I wasn't too happy about it, of course, and I have to see how I will react to that. Allfather goes for the justice system, develops it, takes the coal, will maybe go for that at the next turn. There's James Watt coming down the row, which he might be hoping towards, and then he also takes the breakthrough. Now it is my turn. And this turn was a bit tricky, because I have here some different options, and as you can see I actually go for Robespierre at the end. But my first thought was actually to just take the Conmon, develop it, finish the railroad, increase my strength. Then I have 1 civil action left. I still need to fix my uprising, and in order to do that I would need to disband something. I thought about disbanding the warrior, thanks to the additional military actions and from the Conmon and the strength from the railroad. I would be fine from aggressions, even when I disband this unit. Or I would use my last civil action to just disband a mine or something. But with the last civil action I could actually also take something like Breakthrough, which is a very efficient card, or the team sports. I still need a happy face solution, so with that I felt like I probably disband a unit. So that was my thought for the railroad turn. But the question is, if I don't go for Robespierre here, what leader do I end up going for? I could, of course, go for Anthony Gaudi, but he's not that great for me here. Maria Theresa, with not having set up my food production and with having strong resource production, especially when I finish the railroad, is not that great. Napoleon could be fine, but I think the science that Robespierre saves me here is just very strong. The problem being, if I go for that Robespierre line and save some science on the Conmon immediately, I actually have enough civil actions left to finish the railroad, but I have no military actions left, meaning that disbanding a warrior is not an option. So instead of finishing the railroad, I will just go for the team sports and build one. And that turn at the end felt the best for me. I save 6 science, I get also 3 culture, of course. I have now 7 civil and 5 military actions. Hopefully at the next turn I will be able to finish the railroad. And yeah, and I thought that this might just be the best that I can get out of my leader. I don't take the breakthrough, I didn't like that too much, but at least Eepogi maybe doesn't need that card as much, so it's bad that I miss out on it, but it's not too bad that I give it to my opponents. Also, if I somehow would have been able to grab another card, I would have liked it to make it that James Watt will be discarded before Allfather's turn, but there isn't just really a nice turn that also is fine for myself. So at the end I let James Watt be available for Allfather, especially if I deny him. He might just go for Maria, and with the Ocean Liner, that also might be a very strong leader for him. And yeah, so that was my turn here at the end. Sadly, I am remaining the weakest, but at the next turn I will be able to finish the railroad, and then I'm actually 21 strength. A lot of additional strength from some non-military unit sources with the Territory, Colossus, Railroad, Team Sports. So I was hoping that there won't be any bad strength events revealed before my next turn. Then it's Eepogi's turn. He seeds and opens the Raiders, so sadly a strength event, but maybe not the worst one. Eepogi will go for the selective breeding. I was also really hoping that I will get that second copy of selective breeding that is coming down the row. Allfather hasn't taken one, but he has the Ocean Liner, so maybe it's not on the highest priority for him. I was hoping maybe Eepogi would let it stay on 3s to make it a bit more difficult for him to take it, but it will indeed drop down in the 2 civil action area for him. But at least Allfather has some different stuff to do. First of all, he will offer me the Scientific Cooperation Pact, which, as you can see, I will accept. We both have 7 science. We both have 4 production. He has, of course, the breakthrough. He also will be able to go for James Watt, be able to go for coal very cheaply, but nonetheless, that pact has just quite some big potential, and I was willing to accept it here. Also a bit unfortunate for Eepogi. He is out-pacted here. I have the trade agreement and scientific cooperation with Allfather, while he has no pact. Always an unfortunate situation to be in a 3-player game. Allfather takes the Rifleman, develops it with the scientific cooperation pact, goes for some upgrades, actually making sure to be the strongest here. He sees what is on top with Joan of Arc, so that is definitely a bit of a hint. Then he will take James Watt, he will take the efficient upgrade, and actually just uses this rich land to build a 4th bronze mine. Isn't going for any coal upgrades with James Watt this turn. And interestingly, he isn't even electing James Watt, which let me wonder a little bit. First you might think, oh, there is just a really, really bad strength event on top and he wants to keep the strength of Joan of Arc, but now he will actually copy to the classic army tactic, meaning even with losing Joan of Arc and getting James Watt, he would still be the strongest. The age will end before his next turn. He doesn't have a lot of civil actions. So I think he probably should have elected James Watt here, but maybe he had some specific reasons to keep John even longer. I mean, there's an event coming soon, maybe that could be the Iconoclasm. But he keeps Joan of Arc for now, is prepared to go for coal at the next turn. Has not upgraded anything so far, interestingly, but still with the Ocean Liner and some blue text, he has a solid position, especially also with his culture lead that he has built up towards. This turn, as you can see, I will start with finishing the railroad. I also really thought about going for selective breedings, as getting some food production going might just be very important. But the thing is, Allfather's turn really might it look like that there is a bad strength event coming. Of course, I'm only getting 1 strength stronger than Eepogi, but I will end the age before his turn, and when he loses to 2 yellow tokens because of not having any free happy workers available, it's actually not that easy for him to get stronger. He could maybe go for the Rifleman and upgrade swordsman to rifles, but I was hoping that he might actually stay weaker, which could hopefully result in me not being part of a strength event or being part of one that I otherwise would miss out on. So I thought getting the strength here is quite important, and while I don't get the food production, at least I get another 3 additional resource production, which is also not bad. And with not committing to the selective breeding, maybe there's the door open to get an early mechanized agriculture. Then I have 4 civil actions left. I think I definitely have to grab the selective breeding here, and as you can see I also grabbed the cannons here. I thought about doing some different stuff than grabbing the cannons, but I don't know if I get this copy of Rifleman. I have the fortifications in hand, so at the end I just thought that's what I have to do. I thought about journalism, maybe developing the selective breeding already with the scientific cooperation pack that I do not use now for now. But yeah, I want to take the cannons here and just to have more freedom for my military. Especially, I'm a bit behind in culture. I have at least now some good resource production, hopefully also soon some food production, and then maybe going for some additional or for a bit of a military push, especially with having all of those additional military sources, could be an idea. So I wanted to have the cannons available. I will get my H2 draws, and then also H2 will end, so I will get the Colossus draws. I draw some more events that I can see. Another colonization card. Impact of Balance could potentially be interesting. Not now, but maybe if I can build up towards it. So some interesting draws. Eepogi Seeds. And there's actually the foray, so I get rewarded for getting stronger, and Allfather is now part of that. Made sure to be stronger, but even now with having had James Watt, and of course now he has Lost Chin of Arc anyway, he would be able to be part of that. So I think maybe you should have elected him already at the turn before. Eepogi goes for the Opera, builds one, takes the Rifleman and the Cannon, so sadly it takes the Rifleman away, which removes the option from me for now to go for the Classic Army. And also he doesn't go for a government form yet, maybe wants to leave himself open to which one he wants to go for and can get one for cheaper at the next turn, instead rather wants to get a bit of culture production going. Now it's Allfather's turn, he goes for James Watt and can now go for some very cheap upgrades. Is already at 8 resource production, which I was not happy to see. Then with the last civil action he takes the revolutionary idea, also increases his population with the ocean liner. Now it is my turn. I'm one of the 2 strongest, and I had 2 events that I was mainly considering. Because Impact of Balance, I think, might be revealed too early. National Pride, not that great. But Civil Unrest, with me having enough happy faces for now, and Allfather at the moment not having a happy face solution, could result in quite a bit of a culture loss for Allfather. But I also have the inhabited territory in hand. I have drawn some colonization cards, I have many military actions, I will get more draws, I have the Colossus bonus still, and I think with now starting my food production very late, there's sadly no copy of mechanized agriculture available for me at the start of my turn, and with that I thought that some additional yellow tokens, especially if I should end up being able to win that colony for cheap, could just be extremely strong for me. Additionally, I might have the chance to just send a whole army away and then rebuild my military with cannons and the fortifications tactic. And with that, at the end, I went with the inhabited territory, but it was a really close call, and the civil unrest could also really do some damage, especially to Allfather, who has no happy face solution available. And the inhabited territory could at the end also just be won by one of my opponents, so not sure about this decision, but at the end I went with the inhabited territory here. So I see it. The scientific breakthrough is revealed, which I was not happy to see. Eepogi gets a big boost in that regard. And now, I first of all will start my turn with going for selective breeding upgrades. I think I have to get my food production started. From the foray, I actually took 1 resource and 2 food, making it that when I go for 2 food upgrades this turn, I can increase my population. Next turn, I can increase my population in 2 turns. And then, even though I go into the next area of the yellow bank thanks to the 2 food, I can also again increase my population in 3 turns. So I have now some steady population income. So I go for those 2 upgrades, that also gets me out of corruption. And then there are some cards that I could consider. There's an engineering, which could really save me a lot of resources here. But I think I have already some strong resource production, and I think I just need something to invest into. And I need now to start building up something strong. And with that, I was actually willing here to grab the multimedia for 3 civil action. It is expensive, but I was really fearing if I don't take it, Eepogi maybe doesn't go for it, but Allfather could even just build one at the next turn, or he could take it, go for some more upgrades with James Watt and start building some multimedias the turn after, and I thought it could be really strong for him. He might just take it away, and then who knows if I find something nice to invest into. Additionally, the Hollywood is coming down the row, and with me being a bit behind in culture, I felt like I could maybe try something with the military, but for now it's questionable if I have the means to achieve that. Alternatively, if I maybe still have a shot at taking the Hollywood at the next turn, there are some interesting leaders. If I just get one copy of movies and with my big production, I have some really big potential here. So, and for that, the multimedia would also be very important. So I took the multimedia here. I would have loved to get engineering and multimedia combined, but I just thought I need to get the food production going, which also gets me out of corruption, and at the end I rather committed to the multimedia than the engineering. And then with the last civil action, I actually took the patriotism here. I also considered already developing the multimedia. That would be a bit of a commitment if I draw some wars, a good tactic, maybe spending the science, I could potentially regret it. And so I took the patriotism, maybe not the best card for me, but still having a bit more resources in hand for the military can be nice. And also the military action could be nice. At some point I might lose Robespierre. And so yeah, I at the end thought the patriotism could be nice to have in hand. I keep some events, 2 cards, 2 colonization cards in the fortifications. Tech, they actually draw the modern army tactic and the impact of strength, also the impact of colonies, which is a seedable impact, even a good one against Allfather. So if I get the necessary cards for the modern army, who knows, maybe I can also set up for a war here. Also, maybe we can take a quick look at the overview here, as we are at the beginning of age 3. And yeah, it's an interesting situation where I'm quite a bit behind in culture. I have no culture production at all at the moment, but I have 11 resource production. I have a fine amount of civil actions, and with the multimedia, I soon will be able to increase both my science and my culture production. Nonetheless, my opponents are ahead in culture, and their position is also not bad. Allfather can very cheaply go for more coal upgrades, might then have some really big resource income, and is maybe a bit limited by his low civil actions. That could be a problem. Eepogi will now have a lot of civil actions, not as strong of a production as Iron Allfather will have. So I think it's quite a close situation, but I need some nice things in order to catch up. But I have already made sure to have at least one nice way to maybe build up something nice with having taken the multimedia. It's Eepogi's turn. He actually decides to go for the Republic here, has the Colosseum, so is still on 3 military actions. Will then take the satellites. Sadly, when I seeded inhabited territory, the scientific breakthrough wasn't revealed, so I thought that if Eepogi goes for a government form, he doesn't have enough science to go for the satellites. Sadly, the scientific breakthrough was revealed, and now Eepogi goes for the satellites, is well prepared to win the inhabited territory, and I was not really happy about that, and thought maybe I should have rather seeded a civil unrest. Eepogi then also takes the air forces, builds another opera, and increases his culture production even more. Allfather seeds and the freedom of movement is revealed. With that, I also was a bit unhappy about the decision from last turn. Of course, I couldn't have known that the freedom of movement is on top, but if I would have developed a multimedia, now I could have very nicely put an alchemy into multimedia, which could have been quite strong. Allfather uses the freedom of movement to just upgrade one more mine from bronze to coal, upgrades one more normally, is now 12 resource production, so has even overtaken me in that regard, takes Mandela, replaces James Watton thanks to the additional civil action that he gets immediately from Mandela. He has still just enough civil actions left to grab the air forces, and that means that both of the air forces are taken away. It's very early clear that I will be the player without air forces, which is quite problematic, because the classic army is a tactic that can be a bit limiting in Age 3, unless of course you get air forces, and now without too much investment they will soon have a bit of military pressure, while I, without air forces and also with limited amount of population, might need to defend, which might prevent me from going for something like multimedia. So I was a bit worried about how the military situation will develop in this game, with both of the air forces now being taken very early. At least both of my opponents had to take them for 3, but they were prepared to do so. I actually seeded the impact of balance. With it now being in the next deck, I was willing to take the risk, and I was hoping that I will have enough time to prepare nicely for that one. And I am actually the weakest at the moment, but I don't get punished, and instead the inhabited territory will be revealed. I was actually willing to, I think, go all in, and then my original idea for the turn was to go for multimedias, but I thought if I win this colony I will go for cannons first, and that maybe will still be strong. But at the end Eepogi is able to win it. He went for the satellites, he has some colonization cards and wins it for just 1 unit, so I wasn't really happy how that was developing, and if that event would have been the civil unrest, that at least would have made it that Allfather would have lost a bit of culture, who with getting Mandela is also now better prepared with 6 civil actions instead of 5, more culture production, so I was also a bit worried about that his weaknesses that I was hoping might lead to him having some problems in age 3 were very well fixed by Mandela. At least he hasn't any excess happy faces for now. There's the freedom of movement to be evaluated, and now that I didn't develop the multimedia, sadly it's the question, what do I want to do? I thought about either moving a warrior into the team sports, as I soon just will need more happy faces. It gives me also a bit of strength, but of course I would lose some strength if I used a warrior, and at the end I actually made a decision to use the bronze mine and put it into team sports. I lose some resource production, I might regret losing that, but at least I might need one to build one of those soon anyway, and gives me a bit of strength, actually makes me the strongest for now. And so at the end I was willing to use the freedom of movement like that. At some point I might have deleted this mine anyway, so now it saves me the civil actions, and I can also save a bit of resources getting this team sports. Now, with both of the air forces being gone, I thought that trying something military heavy, especially with Eepogi also having the MHD castle, maybe could work, but also it's a bit of a stretch, especially because I don't have a war yet. So without an air, setting myself up without an air force and playing against 2 civilizations with classic army with air forces and one of them having Himeji just didn't feel like the right way to maybe close the culture gap. And so instead I decided to go for a big culture heavy route and decided to pick up the Hollywood here, which is a bit of a risk. If I wanted to play it somewhat safe, I could have decided to pick up the Hollywood in the movies, but it would be extremely expensive, and I made the gamble on me getting still a copy of movies. I was very convinced that that copy will be taken away by Allfather, but who knows, the second copy, maybe Eepogi won't have a chance to take that, and also doesn't need it that much with the opera. So now I go for the Hollywood. Ideally, I would have liked to go for a turn where I now develop multimedia and the engineering. I have just enough science to do that. Build one multimedia with the engineering and then grab the Hollywood. The thing being, I am missing 1 civil action to do that. I could have disbanded a warrior in order, instead of increasing my population, and could have achieved it, but at the end I rather wanted to keep the strength, and I might potentially still need a warrior, especially if I want to go for the modern army tactics. So I was at the end willing to miss out on the engineering discount for once. I get 1 multimedia going, I grab the engineering, I grab the Hollywood, and I was now really hoping that I will get probably the second copy of movies and one of those theater leaders. But then with me now having the engineering, having still 10 resource production, I maybe have some potential to build up towards a strong Hollywood, but I was worried that my plans to go for that might be disrupted by my opponents going for a bit of military. I actually discarded the fortifications tactic because I can also use the modern army outdated potentially, and I keep the 2 impacts. Eepogi offers me an international tourism. We both gain 2 additional culture production for now, so I was happy to accept that one. Eepogi uses the freedom of movement to put a swordsman into scientific method, interestingly, but that allows him to use the wave to completely rebuild his units. Takes the computers, develops them. I luckily was missing 1 science to get into the military theory, which I let on the row for him, which is of course a really strong card for him to get. He takes he takes the military theory, he takes the efficient upgrade, interestingly, instead of something like patriotism, and doesn't switch to Sid Meier for now. Instead rather wants to keep the science production from Newton and the action that he will save. And one of the reasons why he maybe kept Newton we can see on Allfather's turn, because sadly after Eepogi went for those computers, the popularization of science is revealed, which gives him now quite a big amount of culture. The good news for me is that at least I also gained 3 culture on Allfather, so Allfather is the one who gets the worst deal on that card. As expected, he will grab the movies. There's also Fleming in the row. I was afraid that he might take him, but the multimedia might be taken away, so I think, uh, I guess, Allfather has, of course, Mandela already, so that, of course, was no consideration, but yeah, Fleming is coming down, and I was hoping that, or I was thinking that I will take him now, and I was hoping that I will get a second copy of movies soon. Allfather takes the fast food chains, with him having 4 mines already in the ocean liner. That might actually be a relatively strong event. Wonder, and then he takes the urban growth. Now it's my turn. I'm the strongest. I want to see it, but I'm not willing to commit to the impact of strength. So despite Eepogi having 2 colonies, with me getting the 3 culture for seeding, it's still an equal impact for me against Eepogi, and I was willing to push here. I seed, and the international negotiations are revealed, so I actually get rewarded for getting a bit stronger the turn before with the additional team sports, and now I can take something from Allfather, and I just went with taking resources. Maybe it doesn't hurt him as much, but if he plans on building some movies, it could still be that he's missing some resources at the end. But I mainly thought, if I want to go for big Hollywood and I want to be able to defend myself, then maybe resources is just the thing that I need the most at the end, even though of course science could also be useful. My plan was to switch to Fleming this turn. I kind of have to hope that I get movies anyway, and if I get them, then Fleming is just the best leader for the Hollywood that I can get. I have enough happy faces, so I don't need the happy faces from Chaplin or Marlene. But before I switched to Fleming, I decided to go for a Robespierre revolution here. And I do think that's very strong for me. I miss out on some draws though, and I also will drop down quite heavily in military actions, because I will not only lose the military action from Robespierre, but of course also the one from the Conmon, dropping down from 5 to 3 military actions, making it a bit of a struggle which events I want to keep in hand or which military cards. But I'm already in 11 culture production. Just with doing that, I also got 3 culture for the revolution, and I still have some civil actions left, meaning I can develop the engineering this turn, I can build another multimedia, getting me out of corruption, and I can take the revolutionary idea, allowing me to maybe go for more text. Military theory could be important, maybe some text to set up for a potential modern army tactic. So no, I thought that was a strong turn. I will actually already be on 41 culture at the end of my turn, and with that turn definitely have catched up on my opponents. And I have this Hollywood. So now I just first of all need to hope to get movies, and then I need to hope that I don't get disrupted too much by my opponents. Now it was a tough call to make, which cards I want to keep in hand. At the end I kept a modern army, discarded the entrenchments. At least I can use the modern army outdated, but yeah, I have to make some tough choices here. I kept 1 defense card and the impact of strength, which with playing in last position has just some huge potential. Eepogi seeds, and this time I got quite a bit lucky with the turn order, because if international negotiations and iconoclasm would have been the other way around, I couldn't have done the Robespierre revolution. Robespierre would have gotten removed, and I wouldn't have won the international negotiations while I was the strongest. So some lucky timing for me here, and I was happy to see that Eepogi is new and will go now, costing him actually 2 civil actions this turn, because he could have developed a military theory with Newton and would have gotten the civil action back when replacing him with Sid Meier. He will go for some more upgrades. It's now at 19 culture production, so he's really producing some culture. I have upped my culture production quite a bit, but Eepogi is now in front of that again. Eepogi will also go for some upgrades. It's at 30 strength, takes the reserves, will draw a bunch of cards with having the military theory. Now it's Allfather's turn. He will go for movies, another movie, goes for air forces, builds 1, is at 35 strength, builds a warrior, plays the reserves for food, takes the engineering genius. Doesn't have that many resources saved up, so that could potentially be problematic for him. Now we are at my turn. I don't use my politics phase, and this turn I did something very stupid. Maybe you notice it when we take a look at the log. The thing is, I have of course Fleming, so I could use the spy ability, but normally, same as with events, I just skip forward to my action phase, see what turns are viable, and then go back to politics phase, or with having Fleming to the decision if I want to use him or not. And then after knowing what turn I will go for, I will decide which information is more valuable, getting the cards knowledge from Eepogi now or from Allfather. The thing being that this time I forgot to get back and just didn't use Flaming's spying ability and just passed on that, which is of course quite bad, especially in 3-player games where you can just switch between the two players. You can get really some valuable information, sometimes really construct very nicely at the end what impacts are in there. And so I was of course very unhappy when I noticed that. I actually didn't even notice it myself. Allfather was asking in the chat if maybe something wrong with the log because I didn't show that I used the flaming ability, but yeah, I just forgot using it, which is of course quite bad, and I was a bit unhappy about that mistake. So yeah, hopefully that won't happen a second time to me, and let it be a warning to you. And yeah, I wasn't willing to commit to the impact of strength here. I take the modern infantry and I will also take the tanks because things are looking a bit dangerous. Eepogi has now the additional military actions from the military theory, can go for an air force, sacrifice with Himeji. Allfather can go for some more strength, so it just needs a military tax now to be a bit safer. And it was a bit difficult for me this turn. How far should I go to defend myself? How risky do I need to play it? And the military theory, the second one, is not in the row. Also, the movies are not in the row yet. And at the end, I thought about going for new population, building a cannon or something, but I didn't unnecessarily want to commit another population into the military here, and so instead I at the end developed the modern infantry, actually played the patriotism already. Who knows if I find a civil action and the opportunity to use it again before the end of the age. So I will go for 2 upgrades. 2 upgrades make it that I'm not the weakest any longer. I'm not in danger of any aggressions with having the defense card, and then I will at least still get 2 draws at the end of my turn. But I am somewhat vulnerable. The good news is that I still have a shot at getting this military theory, and if I get it, I can develop it, I can go for the classic army, I can build some strong units, I have quite some resources saved up. So I was hoping, with potentially also threatening some H3 tactics. I have actually the modern army in hand, but when I will drop down to 3 military actions, I can only go for 1 modern army, which is not really enough. But with the military theory, I was just pretty much hoping that I will be safe enough, and I just need to take some risks. I can't just build another modern infantry. I still need a big Hollywood to come back into this game. I'm still quite a bit behind. And so I, at the end was going for that turn, going for those modern infantry upgrades, not needing another population in the military, still being safe from aggressions and somewhat safe from wars, while still at least drawing 2 cards. And I actually draw 2 new impacts. Impact of Science might be possible, even though Eepogi could also, if he goes for an H3 government form, go for another computer. But against Allfather could be a nice impact. An impact of government, especially if I get military theory, could also be very worthwhile to see it. So I was happy about the draw. And there is actually a war declared by Eepogi, and I was very happy to not be the target. Allfather invested quite a bit, doesn't really have any resources in hand, just the 12 that he produced to work with, and Eepogi is punishing that now, goes for a war, goes for an air force, plays the reserves, goes for a cavalryman. Does he even have the shock troops tactic? He takes the revolutionary idea, the fundamentalism. He has no shock troops, but still is at 46 strength, and while it's not that much more than Allfather has, he can't go for another army. Actually, I think he could go for another outdated army, but that would require quite some big destruction, and he doesn't have enough resources to go for a not outdated army. So Eepogi deciding that that war is relatively safe, especially because he can also sacrifice with Himeji Allfather seeds. And I was not happy to see that impact of harmony. It's 24 for Allfather, who is very nicely prepared for that. It's also his impact, if I remember correctly, and I only get plus 12, so that is of course, now I'm again quite a bit behind the other players. Allfather takes the professional sports, will at least get a bit of additional Mandela culture, doesn't need to destroy as much, or doesn't need to destroy anything. I think there could have been some defenses where he would have maybe gained a bit more strength, but it would have come at a lot more destruction, so that is probably the cleanest turn that he can go for, and he's only 1 strength behind Eepogi. Eepogi might sacrifice, but it's not the biggest war, but of course still a disruption from Allfather, and he will get a bit of culture stolen. And also what I was happy to see with Eepogi going for that war, he isn't as nicely prepared for the red cross any longer, because at the turn before he was very well prepared to just take and finish the red cross, but now the red cross is not really that strong for him any longer, so while he is winning a war, at least he gave up on the red cross in order to achieve that, or at least on a strong red cross. Now there are some cards revealed, and I was really interested to see whether there will be the copy of movies revealed, and there is actually a copy of movies revealed. Just the top card on the row is a copy of movies, and that will increase the potential of my Hollywood by quite a bit. This time I didn't miss out on using Fleming, and I decided to use him on Eepogi, who with having the fundamentalism looks a bit threatening, and I just wanted to know how threatening he is in regards of having a war. And he doesn't have a war, he also doesn't have an aggression. I was happy to see that, and he has 3 impacts: impact of culture, impact of population, which is quite a bit better for Allfather, and the impact of variety, which is a relatively strong impact for Eepogi. So some good knowledge here, especially that I don't have to be worried about war aggressions, at least from one of the opponents. Still there's also Allfather, and I have to think about how I want to be set up to defend against potential aggressions from him. But first of all, I see the impact of government. I will take the military theory this turn, and that will just be a very solid impact. The impact revealed is the impact of balance, and that gives me a +6 against Allfather. I will take the movies, and I just have to catch up some culture. I thought about some safer turns, where I maybe develop the military theory this turn or something. But I just need that big culture increase, I think, and I need to take some risks here. The question is, how many risks? Because after developing the movies, I take the military theory. I need that card to be safe from wars. Without it, I would be very much in danger of wars. I will actually lose the cannons here, but just with tanks, modern infantry, with having that much resources saved up, copying the classic army, threatening maybe shock troops or something, should be enough to make myself safe from any wars. So I need the military theory to that, and of course it's also nice for some impacts, especially the impact of variety that, for example, Eepogi might very likely seed into the deck. And then I kind of would have liked to just take the endowment with the last civil action, which will very likely result in an additional 6 culture. I don't anti-age here, but I think additional time, if I don't get punished by wars or aggressions, is actually beneficial for me, because I have now the strongest culture reduction, and with every additional turn the Hollywood will get bigger at the end, so I didn't really want to anti-age here, but I kind of would like to take the endowment. The problem being that in order to defend against an aggression from Allfather with the current amount of strength that I'm having, I would need 3 defense cards, making it very likely that Allfather would try an aggression. He has drawn a lot of cards, he has some additional military actions, there won't be any draws for him at his turn anyway, and it would just be quite likely that he might go for an aggression, and some aggressions like raid or something could just be very bad for me. And so here I did a call to not take the endowment and instead destroy the slab, build a knight, copy the tactic. That of course also means that I miss out on quite a bunch of draws, but it means that I'm 8 strength behind Allfather. I know that Eepogi doesn't have an aggression, but I can now defend against an aggression from Allfather. However, I was mainly hoping that maybe being at that amount of strength and doing that commitment will make it that Allfather won't go for an aggression at all, because if he actually goes for an aggression, it's still quite painful for me, and the bad thing is he might also know that, because I would need to discard all of my cards, meaning no impact of strength that I could potentially still go for, no impact of science, and so yeah, I'm not sure if that was needed, but with already copying and building that unit, I'm also a bit more safe from wars, because otherwise I would have been short on military actions to copy and threaten to go for a second army, even with the military theory. So it makes me safe from wars, and at least I can choose to defend against an aggression if I think it's viable, and it should make it at least a bit less likely that Allfather will go for one if he has maybe also some seedable impacts. Now, of course, I was very annoyed of not having used Fleming that turn before. I could have had some knowledge about Allfather's card. I knew maybe about which aggressions are likely to deal with. So, yeah, that of course comes back to haunt me now. Maybe I should play it greedily here, maybe I need the additional culture from the endowment, but with the additional turns, my Hollywood might actually get quite big. I will have some very big production from now on, and I was hoping that I am actually not that much behind as it might look like because of the big Hollywood that I will get at the end. So I keep the 2 impacts, discard the modern army because I will lose the cannons and the rockets will be very likely discarded before my next turn. Eepogi actually sacrifices the cavalryman, is now on steals now 9 culture from Allfather, has now a bit of a lead towards him. He seeds, the impact of colonies is revealed, that's a good one for him, but with the 3 culture for seeding it was still worthwhile seeding it for me. Eepogi this turn can go for the democracy, increases his culture production. I know that he has the impact of culture in hand, so that might help him winning that impact at the end, but I guess that the first impact that he would see is the impact of variety, as that is the safer one. He will get now some new draws. Now H4 will start, and I was very interested to see whether Allfather will still try to go for an aggression. And he actually goes for one, and as you can see, I actually made the call here to just let it through. It was a tough call to make, but I think it's the right call, because I would lose the impact of strength in the impact of science, especially the impact of strength, with me expecting that Allfather won't take the military build-up could still be achievable for me. It could be a very strong impact for me. And the other thing would be, if I now defend, all of my cards would be gone. I would be without a single card. And ideally, at the next turn, I would like to just develop the military theory for my military and then just build another movie and not be concerned about building more military units. I am very limited in population anyway. And if I just developed a military theory, I'm at 42, and if I had no cards in hand, then Eepogi could have drawn a new aggression, Allfather could have had another one, and the aggression would be guaranteed for them. While now, if I go for the military theory and Allfather doesn't increase his strength a lot, I can go up to 42 strength. Eepogi, if could sacrifice, that could be a bit bad. If he doesn't sacrifice, I could defend with 1 card and would still have the defense card to defend against Allfather. So I was hoping that it will prevent me from getting hit by other aggressions. But of course, in order to let it through, I needed to calculate what damage is done by this aggression. And if I get at least 1 copy of those reserves, which I was hoping that it is very likely, then then the aggression doesn't make the difference between building additional movie for the Hollywood. And with that, I was at the end willing to let it through. If that aggression would have meant having 1 less movie, then I think I would have not defended against it. But with that, I was willing to let it through. Still, it's very annoying. Losing the food means that I can't increase my population during the turn and have to destroy something. And we will see during my next turn how annoying this decision will be. And also the additional food that Allfather gained will help him a lot to get out of famine. He would have had some big famine issues otherwise, with having no reserves in hand, would have maybe to destroy something to build more farms, which is maybe not too bad for him because he has the fast food chains, but still would have been quite annoying. The science will now be missing because it will be a bit tricky for me to develop both military theory and tanks, which would have made it easier to actually go for the impact of strength. Of course, if I defend, I can't go for the impact of strength anyway. So still quite bad to let this aggression through, but I thought it was maybe the better call, as otherwise I might just potentially get hit by 2 more aggressions, and I don't have the impact of strength in hand, and something like a raid could still be even worse than this occupy. Allfather takes only 1 of the reserves, takes the endowment, and develops the mechanized agriculture. This turn I was able to take a look at his hand. And actually, he has 1 impact in hand, the impact of agriculture, and he has the ability to see that one with going for 1 or potentially even 2 upgrades during his next turn. And then he also has a plunder in hand, so that is some interesting knowledge. And for my politics phase, I had a tough choice to make. Do I want to commit to any of those impacts? The impact of strength would be a bit risky because I don't know for certain yet how nicely I will be able to do it. I had a plan where I could overtake Allfather's 47 strength, and Allfather is somewhat limited with his civil actions, so I thought it's quite likely that he won't increase his strength even more. Same for Eepogi, who maybe either wants to go for the red cross or maybe wants to maximize his culture production for the impact of culture with building a religion and the opera. He could make that impact relatively safe. And so I could maybe commit to the impact of strength already, leaving myself at the next turn with the option to see the impact of science, or I could even commit to the impact of science already, which would be a commitment towards playing for second place, because I think Eepogi has the best position here, and I could see the impact of science just to get some points against Allfather. But I did some rough calculations, and it turned out that actually my position, even after getting hit by that aggression, is not looking that bad, and that I was definitely not willing to give up on the fight for the first place. So I didn't really like ceding the impact of science, and with that I made a call to not commit to the impact of strength here. However, at my next turn we will see that if I would have been very, very clever, I maybe could have seen a scenario where it could have been nice to see the impact of strength, and with me being relatively certain that the impact of strength should end up being good for me, maybe I could have actually gone for it. Or maybe I should have. But we will maybe discuss it at the next turn. At the end, my reasoning was I want to play for first place. I don't want to see the impact of science. I sadly will have to destroy this alchemy this turn. All the other alternatives don't really work. With that, impact of science is guaranteed to be weaker than Eepogi's science production, and with that I only seed one impact anyway, and then it's better to commit later to the impact of strength, especially because I will also improve some impacts this turn. So I didn't seed, I played a revolutionary idea, I developed a military theory. With that I'm already relatively safe from aggressions, unless Eepogi sacrifices, in which case there's the danger of getting hit by a plunder from Allfather. Then I want to take the reserves in the military build-up. Military build-up, I need to make it that I have a shot at impact of strength. Reserves, I need to be able to finish the Hollywood plus build an additional urban building at the next turn. And with the last two civil actions, I wanted to build an additional movie now, which I need to do in order to get out of corruption, as I need every resources. With corruption, I also would lose the opportunity to build another urban building, and of course I also want to get a culture production this turn. The big question being, what do I delete? I can't delete a mine because I need the resources. I could delete a farm, but I just saw the impact of agriculture in Allfather's hand, and I thought it's likely that he will cede it, as he can potentially go for 2 upgrades and finish the fast food chains, and that would cost me really a lot of points. I can't really destroy any unit or team spots, because when I lose some strength I already am again more in danger of potential aggressions. And with that, basically the alchemy is the only thing remaining that is somewhat acceptable to destroy, but it's also not great. I will miss it for the impact of variety, and I also the big problem about that is that now I don't have enough science any longer to develop tanks at the next turn. Because the most easiest way to fight for impact of strength would be to play the military build-up at the next turn and go for 2 upgrades to tanks. I don't need any additional units in the military for that, but now I need, I will build a movie, and now for the next turn, my plan in order to win the impact of strength was to build another modern infantry knights, but for that I need more population, so it gets a lot more ugly to get those units. At least at the next turn I was hoping that there is a relatively good way for me to get new population without hurting a lot of impacts, because I know that Eepogi has seeded 1 impact, and it's likely the impact of variety. That impact is the impact of government that I have seeded, meaning that all the impacts that I don't have knowledge about are on the current event deck, and I know that Allfather will likely seed, unless he thinks that I wasn't able to defend when he played his aggression against me, and thinks that he can get a blunder through for certain. He might try it, but then he will fail. But I was thinking he will likely see it, and Eepogi might see the impact of culture, might have drawn a new impact that I don't have knowledge about. So there will likely be some seeding happening, meaning that during my next action phase, ideally all of those impacts are out. I know that Allfather is only the impact of agriculture, because the thing is, impact of harmony and balance are already out. And the only impact where it would be bad for me to delete mines is the impact of industry. It's actually an impact that could have been seeded by Allfather, but he doesn't have it in hand at the moment, meaning if he has seeded it, it's among those 3 events, meaning that if hopefully 2 or 3 events are revealed before my next action phase, there's a good chance that if that impact is in there, it's already out, meaning at my next turn I can just disband those mines, hopefully without any impact being negatively affected by that. And then I could increase my population, destroy 2 mines, and have the 3 population that I need to build 2 more units and 1 more movie plus finish the Hollywood. Could get a bit annoying though if Eepogi decides to go for the red cross, because then if I want to build a step of it, I don't have enough food to get a population normally, and then again I can't disband the team sports because I actually need the strength to be stronger than Allfather. Then it could be quite annoying again. Maybe I have to destroy a farm, maybe I have to just not go for the impact of strength, so that will be interesting to see. I thought Eepogi might likely go for the red cross, playing reserves of food, going for 3 steps. But maybe he also wants to maximize for the impact of culture, and if he wants to do that, then he can't really go for the red cross that nicely. Yeah, so a very complicated turn overall. The Occupy did make the turn quite a bit more annoying, otherwise I could have just increased my population now instead of having to destroy the alchemy, so maybe I could have defended against it, but I have now the shot to still finish the Hollywood as strong as I would have finished it if I would have defended against this aggression. I can now defend against more aggressions, and I still have the impact of strength in hand. Then the culture-wise, as you can see, am getting closer to Allfather. The gap to Eepogi is still quite big, and he might get some culture now with the International Red Cross. Eepogi seeds and opens the impact of architecture, which I was relatively happy to see. Especially Eepogi will improve it a bit during his turn. Of course, I would have also improved it during my turn, but it's very likely that it will be out before my turn, and it's an impact that gives me a benefit against both of my opponents. Eepogi plays the reserves, builds another opera, takes the mechanized agriculture, sadly goes for an upgrade. I know that Allfather likely will see the impact of agriculture. Instead of going for another upgrade, interestingly, he will instead develop the professional sports. When taking a look at that, I thought that maybe he has actually seeded the impact of tech now, which is quite strong for him. Allfather seeds, he doesn't go for the plunder. The impact of competition is revealed, no impact of industry being there yet. I was actually hoping that it might be there, so that I get an impact that gives me a bit of points against Eepogi. Now the impact of competition is revealed, which is nice for Allfather, but at least I get 1 point against Eepogi with that impact. Allfather plays the endowment, plays the reserves, goes for 2 upgrades, finishes the fast food chains, can't really do anything more. And now it's my last turn, and with both of my opponents not increasing their strength. My last turn is relatively clear. I go for the impact of strength. That will give me plus 14 against Eepogi, and I do actually have some hopes here. And I was really hoping that maybe that could be impact of industry, or maybe another impact that gives me some points against Eepogi. Also, of course, I did again take a look at Eepogi's turn, and also not forgetting about that, there is the impact of industry revealed, so now I can disband those mines, and I get 3 additional points against Eepogi. I knew now some new cards from Eepogi. I think he drew something like a defense card, war, and an aggression, and at his last turn, he couldn't discard any cards. Meaning, I actually knew at that point that the 3 new cards that he has drawn are still in his hand, meaning he must have seeded one of the impacts that I have already seen when I took a look at his turn 2 turns ago. And impact of population doesn't really make that much sense for him, unless he maybe wants to play it against me, but against Allfather it's quite bad. And so it looks like the impact of culture might be in there. And now this turn I think it's relatively clear what I need to do. I will get 3 populations, increasing my population and destroying my mines. I was happy to see that Eepogi didn't go for the red cross. Then I will build a movie. I will finish the Hollywood for 48 points, so a really big Hollywood, giving me really some big points. I get 29 culture reduction as well. I will blade a military build-up to build a modern infantry and a knight to go up to 49 strength. And then before the final impacts, we can take a look at the overview, and also now it's time maybe to discuss again about why maybe it could have been interesting for me to see the impact of strength already the turn before. Because I thought about Eepogi maybe going for Red Cross, or maybe trying something with impact of culture. I thought he will go for operas and religion. What I've kind of forgotten my calculations is that, of course, if he doesn't go for the Red Cross, then the international tourism doesn't increase for me, while now it increases for Eepogi, meaning that he's at 29 while I'm at 29, so the impact of culture that is in there is now in favor of Eepogi. For my politics action, however, I could have cancelled the international tourism pact, which of course would have cost me 2 culture production, but then out of the sudden Eepogi would have lost 1 more culture production than I would have lost, and out of the sudden I would be in favor for the impact of culture. And if I would have ceded the impact of strength already the turn before, then I now would have had a free politics action to actually cancel this pact and overtake Eepogi for the impact of culture. I found it interesting that Eepogi didn't build a religion. That would have made it a lot safer. And after the game, he also said that that would have been the safer move. But like that, I had the impact of strength still in hand, and I just needed to play it. And also, to be honest, I didn't spot that by myself during the game. It was pointed out to me by Eepogi, and I overlooked that option of cancelling this pact. But even if I would have seen it, ceding the impact of strength is just better in this situation. But yeah, if I would have ceded it a turn before, and if I then, maybe with not really having anything to do with the politics phase, maybe I would have spotted it, and that could have been interesting. Now, despite having missed out on Fleming's ability once, I still have basically perfect information about the final impacts. 2 are from me, 2 are from Eepogi. Maybe he has ceded impact of population, but impact of culture seemed more likely to me. And then Allfather ceded impact of agriculture, so I could already calculate a lot. However, I won't spoil you the result, and we will just take a look at how it ends now. The final culture being at the moment that I'm only 4 points behind Eepogi, considering how the situation looked some turns ago. Quite impressive, just showcasing what a big Hollywood can do. And Allfather's a bit behind, but still somewhat in touch. The first impact is the impact of variety ceded by Eepogi. It gives him +2 against me, and Allfather is actually now getting the most points out of that impact. We have the impact of strength ceded by me. I am now 8 culture in the lead before Eepogi, and Allfather catches again some points up to Eepogi. Then there's the impact of agriculture. Sadly, Eepogi increased his score in that one with going for the upgrade to mechanized agriculture, and also Allfather catches up some points again. There's the impact of culture. That's a strong one for Eepogi, meaning at the moment he's 1 culture ahead of me, and the last impact is actually one of mine. It's the impact of government. Sadly though, that one is also quite strong for Eepogi, so very closely for me it's not enough at the end. And Eepogi is able to win it with a 2 culture lead, and Allfather at the end finishing at the 3rd place. Yeah, so that was an extremely exciting finish. I was a bit skeptical during times. I knew that I had some potential with my big production, but especially after Allfather had Mandela and 12 resource production going, I thought, do I really have what it takes to catch up in culture? Especially also after missing out on those air forces. But yeah, I got the Hollywood, I got the movies, I got Fleming. I somehow managed to not get hit by wars and at least only 1 aggression. That 1 aggression still being quite bad. If Allfather would have just ceded, that could have maybe then be enough for me to potentially win the game. And yeah, at the end, sadly 2 culture missing. And if I would have ceded impact of strength a turn earlier and then cancelled the pact, then maybe it could have been enough for me. Eepogi maybe could have gone for religion instead. It actually would have also scored him some points for variety. So I was interested to see that he isn't willing to destroy anything else, especially with him also knowing that impact of industry, balance, and harmony are all out. So destroying some mines wouldn't have been a problem. But maybe he just wanted to prepare for the impacts. But yeah, if he would have done maybe that slight mistake, I would have seen it. Maybe I could have ended differently, but yeah, a very close game, a very interesting game, a very nice comeback nonetheless. I was happy that I was able to make it that close, but sadly at the end, yeah, still 2 points behind Eepogi. Alright, yeah, with that game being finished, we can now take a look at the current standings. And as you can see, there has again another game finished where I wasn't involved. Allfather, while losing the game that we just saw, was able to win another 3-player game against Takusto and Danny Boy. And yeah, so with that, 4 games are finished. As you can see, the 2 games where I was involved were both very, very close. In both games, I actually finished 2 culture points behind Eepogi. So let's hope that that doesn't become a new theme or a new trend or something like that. Yeah, so with the 2 results now, my start is not really that great, but it was just extremely close, and with a few things maybe playing out differently, I actually could have had a very strong start here. Now, sadly, when we take a look at the standings, I'm only with 3 points, quite a bit behind Eepogi, who has at least 1 more game finished. Gross has a very strong start still with only 1 game finished and 6 points. And then from Mortar to Takusto, there are a bunch of players with 2 games finished and not the most points, where still everything is possible. Danny Boy having only 1 game finished, so despite him having 0 points, also still everything possible for him. So yeah, still a lot of games to go. Not the ideal start for me, but some very close and exciting games. And yeah, I hope you're excited to see how the season continues. And yeah, with that, we are at the end of the video. I say thank you for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.